Hello, I am the Notherian, and I'm here today with TinyGrimes, who's going to be playing this Saturday, January 18th, in the Final 8 for the Forgewatch Invitational. Thanks for joining us, Tiny.
Thanks for having me.
And I've also got here Kit, who's going to be in the booth providing expert commentary for the Invitational Top 8 this weekend.
Hey guys.
So I've got up in front of me the deck that TinyGrimes is going to be playing. This is one of the Aloyan Utera decks with a fairly strong robot theme. So can you tell me how you ended up with this particular deck?
Yeah, so going into the Invitational about 2 weeks out, I was just in complete card acquisition mode. And so I was trying to find a deck that did well in the constructed queue much more than finding a deck that I thought would be a great meta deck. Heck, I didn't even know what the meta was going to look like at this point. So I was playing a Death Weaver deck. It was doing okay. People started countering it. I realized Justicar is a little bit too hard of a counter for my taste. So then I switched over to a robot deck very briefly with Tarsus Weirwood. Some of my testing mates suggested I tried things like the Frostwild Tracker and the Scout Drone, and so I sort of went down that avenue for a little while, basically maximizing the Weirwood Patriarch. So I had Oracle, Scout Drone, General. At a point I had like Heart Tree and Mossbeard Patriarch. All in on every card I play gets buffed by the Patriarch. And then I had a couple games where there was no Patriarch to be found.
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of guy that goes much more for the consistent deck than the blow 'em out deck, right? So if I got everything perfect, I just crushed everyone. But when it didn't work, it just died. And so I decided that's not really my playstyle. I need a deck with multiple options. And so I basically looked at the deck and realized if I take out 3 Oracles and 3 other cards I wasn't in love with, I could just put in 3 Sentinels, 3 Arc Flights, and poof, I've got the robot deck again that I was playing before, only a little bit better. And so that's basically how I decided to play the robot deck. I brought it into the constructed queue. I won about 70 legendaries out of it and realized, yes, this deck is very strong.
Nice. Very nice.
So the card that I saw that I've touched on it with a few of the people who've had it is the Orion Warwalker. Has that been performing up to your expectations? When are you looking to play it?
The Orion Warwalker is an interesting card. Originally, it was just in there because I didn't have 3 Thunder Sores. And so it was basically I wanted another card that could run away with the game. I've pretty much been finding that it does not run away with the game. What it does instead is it allows you to put out another threat that they have to deal with. I mean, I know you can live the dream and play it under-leveled in player level 3 and maybe get lucky somehow and buff it to the moon. I haven't found that to be the case. It's been much more, I didn't really draw the cards I want, but I can put a robot on the board that's going to get reasonably big, play to my outs. I haven't seen a Sentinel yet this player level. There's a good chance I'll draw one next turn. If the Warwalker doesn't get culled, it'll be maybe an 8 or a 12 with armor. It will stay alive, and it will kill a rather large creature in addition to the one in front of it. And that's really what I've been using it for. I haven't been prioritizing it. It's been just an additional threat that's pretty far down on the ladder for me.
Gotcha. Well, I know that you're running the famous Senior Blowouts. You want to tell us the story behind that name, the 3 of the Bright Steel Sentinel?
I'm not really sure how we came about that name. I started playing. I love the robots deck pre-set 1.5, but Shapers were pretty brutal on it, so I didn't play it quite as much. After the Shapers got neutralized a bit, I started playing it more, even before I was playing Weirwoods, and I would just get these plays where I could play to the Sentinel and just completely wipe their board with 1 Sentinel, and just one time I went, Senior Blowout! And for some reason that has stuck, and that's apparently his nickname now.
All right. Well,
So
one final question. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, so one of the differences I see in the Utera Loyan decks is whether or not to run any removal. I see you chose 2 base animates. Why is 2 the right number?
Originally I had 3 Gemhide Bashers, Oh, so originally I had 3 Botanimates, no Gemhide Bashers. And I realized, oh no, with the Weirwood Patriarch and all the buffing, playing Botanimate is very risky. Like if you Botanimate, say, a Predator, there's a good chance that they're able to buff that Predator, or maybe Predator's not a great example, but let's say you do an Arc Flight. There's a good chance they turn their 2/4 Arc Flight into, say, a 7/7 sapling rather quickly. And so I thought about that and realized if I take it out entirely for 3 Bashers, I have a creature that sometimes lives and trades for the cards I'm worried about, which were Leafkin, Tarsus Deathweaver, Predator, and Arcflight. And I really patted myself on the back and said, this is a genius move. I don't have to play Botanimates. I'm really excited. And then I tested with some people, namely Ming is the King and I. We played about 15 straight games of the Mirror in which he had 3 Thundersaurs, and he won all 15 games on the back of his Thundersaurs because I just couldn't deal with them.
Yeah.
And those games made me realize, okay, I know you're being stubborn here, but Botanimates have to go back in because you have to have a way to handle Thundersaur.
So my last question before we jump into a game is, what are you worried about playing against in the top 8, and who are you maybe thinking you might have a good matchup against?
I think right now the deck that I'm most worried about is actually my first round opponent. I was looking at all the people that had made it from the bottom brackets, and I felt like I had at least a pretty good matchup against all of them. Holy Llama has the closest to a mirror of mine, but he doesn't have Botanimate, so I feel like that gives me the slight edge. I might be wrong there. But it feels to me like Dark Soul has a very good deck in running Necarium Utera, because a lot of the things that I'm trying to do, like play Thundersaurs, he removes with Blightwalkers. I'm trying to play Arcflight. He removes them with Call of the Week. So a lot of the plays that I'm trying to make are directly countered by what he's trying to do, and at the same time, he's able to grow his stuff with Thundersaurs, Devourers, Predators. So I'm actually terrified of my first round opponent.
So what's your game plan against that deck going to be? Do you have one yet, or are you not willing to share that tech?
I don't actually have one yet. I haven't gotten to test it. My testing partners do not have Thundersaurs that were available today, so they're hoping to acquire them. And I'm guessing I won't be able to play Thundersaur, though I'm hoping to be able to cheat him onto the board in certain scenarios where he'll be immediately out of cull range. I'm hoping to go things like Arc Flight into Patriarch, have the Arc Flight live and grow wide, and I'm thinking I'm going to have to level Botanimate pretty strongly, or things like Thundersaur, Devourer, or Predator are all going to run me over.
And now we're back in game. I'm playing a Tarsus Deathweaver list that I use sometimes in the random online opponent queue, and Tiny has his tournament deck.
All right, yeah, if I'm playing a Tarsus Deathweaver deck, I am definitely prioritizing the Justicar. So in my hand, I also had a Gargoyle and a Weirwood. Depending on the matchup, I would have prioritized differently. The Weirwood would be sort of the standard card. Against a removal deck, I would often throw out the Gargoyle. That way they can't level a Cull on it, hitting my Arc Flights and such later.
So that's actually a good question. So what if you're going completely blind? You're playing on like the constructed tournament queue, and you go first. What do you like to open with when you? I mean, for the Invitational this weekend, you have the prior knowledge of what people are playing, but when you're playing blind.
My favorite card to open with is Arcflight Squadron. If I can get an Arcflight into a Weirwood and they don't have removal, I win that matchup an absurd amount of the time, because it just lets me put out extra cards. It's not just getting extra cards on the board, it's leveling extra cards. If they can put a guy in front of the Arcflight, and then I get a Bright Steel, and I can blow that out, and then have that Arcflight, kill a creature and live and give me a free body. Yeah. Things spiral very quickly for me.
Yeah. No, that's yeah. I can see how the early game Arcflight. I mean, speaking of Arcflights, I noticed you hit your Gemhide Basher there, and Yeah, getting the turn 2 Gemhide Basher against either your opponent's Arc Flights or their Tarsus. I mean, I see how that works well for you.
Yeah, I mean, I got a really good draw against your deck. I got the Justicar into the Basher into a second Justicar now.
Ooh.
And now I have kind of a decision point. I have Arc Flight, which would be great. Gargoyle trades off your Zemus and 2 Thunder Swords in hand.
Wow.
So this is actually a very difficult position. I'm just going to trade off your Zemus and figure that my late game is going to be better than yours if I can have Justicars on the ground and you're dropping down bad Echo Wisps. Or at least that's my hope.
So I'm going to toss out Cull because I think leveling Cull in this matchup is probably quite important for me. And then I don't have a great answer. I'll just do the Progenitor.
Yeah, Progenitor is one of the reasons why I'm running Bashers. I didn't draw the Basher here, but I do have an answer for it anyways. And usually if I have an answer, I just play it over other cards in my deck to try to get it out of there. But if you notice, I didn't play a single Weirwood here, which is not great. But I'm just answering all of your threats, which is useful at least.
And I suppose that the Weirwood is, I mean, Weirwood's often good for you, but is probably more important in some matchups than in others.
Definitely. It depends on what I'm trying to do. I feel like in the Deathweaver matchup, there's a lot of cards that spiral out of control, and if I can lock them down before that happens, I feel like I'll have the advantage. In other matchups, I need to be the person who is spiraling out of control. Like against a removal deck, I need to fill that board as quick as I can, get varied pieces out there so that they have to find the right removal at the right moment. And if I can pull that off, then I usually do okay.
So I tend to think of you as playing more controlling lists than what you're playing in the tournament. You'd recently written up a article on SolForgeGame.com that puts forward a great a great controlling deck that I've fooled around with, and it's a lot of fun. What led you to play something a little more aggressive this time?
It was more the sheer power of it and not having quite enough time to prepare for the event like I would have liked to. For me, because I don't have a lot of money that I'm able to just dump into packs, and I went out of town for quite a while, so I didn't have that chance to just sit in the queues over the holidays. It was really just the last couple of weeks. So much of my testing meant that I was in the constructed queue building a collection and testing simultaneously, which put some interesting problems, I guess, onto my testing. I had to make sure I had decks that could win in the queue. I also like this deck because it wins really fast in the queue.
So it's good for racking up victories and hence packs quickly.
Yes, and I was able to, I mean, basically a tournament takes me about 15 minutes. Before the top 8 deck list came out, I was winning most of my tournaments, and so every 20 minutes or so I was able to get a premium. So that was a lot of my testing, was just doing that. And then I tested with Ming is the King quite a bit and Jake Almighty. And the problem, though, is I don't have Phoenix. So I couldn't quite test the control build I wanted to. In the last meta, I felt like you could play Zemus and control cards, and that was okay. But in this meta, it feels like Zemus is not quite as good because a lot of people are running Botanimates. And they're running Justicars. And they're running other ways to at least minimize his importance, to where I feel like Phoenix is a necessity if you're going to run a control deck right now.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And maybe maybe as we go forward in future events, you can put together the optimal control list for this environment.
Yeah, I also think this environment is a really, really fast one that might be a little too fast for most control decks.
Okay.
And I think the environment is going to slow down as people start running hard counters to this deck. And when they do that, then other people will run different decks, and suddenly it becomes much more diverse, a little more rock, paper, scissors, whereas right now it's really a lot of speed versus trying to live through that speed. and it feels like it's a little bit easier right now to be the guy pushing rather than the guy trying to survive and hold on.
Yeah, it'll be interesting as the game matures to see over time how the ebb and flow of more aggressive versus less aggressive decks works out with SolForge. Arc Flight Squadron into Arc Flight Squadron, always fun. Ooh, and and you get the double Justicar while I have Deathweaver in my hand.
Yeah, this is why I didn't play the Deathweaver deck.
Yeah.
Is most of the UA decks are just running 2 Justicars as the, well, if they're playing Zemus and I can't beat them early, I'll just start playing them for the heck of it. And if they happen to be playing Deathweaver, it's a pretty rough deal. I won't say it's a hard counter, because if you're only running 2, you might not get them.
Yeah.
But if you do see them, it's very difficult, I think. Let's see. And I don't have a level 1 robot, so I mean, putting that Arc Flight out didn't do that much for me, but that's okay.
I mean, it again, but it was a free play, and so you got to level it, and maybe you can get value out of the Arc Flight 2 at some point in the next player rank.
Right, that was more the point of it. I think I'm going to go like this. I had a Thundersaur there I almost played, but I think these Justicars are just going to win pretty handily at this point.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right. Let's try. Can at least get one of them off the board.
No, don't kill one of my Justicars.
Yeah, but I don't think I've got a good answer here.
The minus 20.
And I just can't. I basically can't activate my Leafkin Progenitor. Yeah, this is.
I feel like you have to activate him, because if you don't, then he just dies to everything I play.
Yeah, that's actually a tough call. I don't. I haven't played this. I haven't played this matchup often enough to know whether or not activating the Leafkin was failing to activate the Leafkin was a mistake.
I'm not really sure either. It just, when I've been in that circumstance, I usually activate him. Oh, the problem is it's level 3, so you're not going to get to activate him again anyway.
Yeah. And this should just be game here. Yeah.
So this was really a best case scenario for me. You know, I don't always see all the Justicars. I only had 2. I got that early Basher.
Yep.
Things went well for me.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, you build the deck to make sure that you have good draws available to you in every matchup, and hope that 2 times out of 3 they come through.
Yep, that's really the plan. I try to maximize the difficult matchups. Oops, we should roar first. I try to basically make a deck that handles the field. Like, I feel like some people were teching more directly for this mirror matchup because they knew it was going to be a good deck.
Yep.
For me, I would much rather tech for the field and have a little tech for the mirror, but I'm not comfortable teching all out for the mirror and then losing to the field.
Yep. Yeah, though that... And you know that there's going to be, I mean, with so many good players in the Invitational, you know that there's going to be some interesting variety of decks. Somebody's going to bring something that you haven't seen before, or that you haven't tested quite as much against, and so it's good to have a variety of options available to you.
Yeah, I fully agree with that.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do an interview tonight. And look forward to seeing you play this weekend in the top 8. Best of luck to you.
All right, thanks for having me, and thanks for running such a fabulous tournament. And I really enjoyed myself, and I know a lot of people have really enjoyed the coverage, so keep up the great work.
Okay. We will